This will be for the con exercise, one-sided limits from tables. Okay, it says the function g is defined over the real numbers. This table gives select values of g. So here is the row with the x values, and the bottom is g of x, or the y values. What is a reasonable estimate for the limit as x approaches 7 from the positive side of g of x? Okay, so we're approaching 7 from the positive side. Let's take a look. Actually, before we go to the table, what we're trying to find is what g of x will be as x approaches 7. Okay, so we don't necessarily have to find g of 7. All right, we're not necessarily going to evaluate the function at 7, because the limit of g of x as x approaches 7, it does not necessarily equal g of 7. Okay, we are trying to see what the function approaches, not what it actually is at 7. And we're coming from the positive side, so let's take a look. Okay, so right here is x equals 7. So this is the positive side. Okay, and we are headed towards 7. We're approaching 7. And we can see g of x, it's getting closer and closer to -3. We're really looking at these numbers right in here because we're trying to see what it approaches, not necessarily what it is. But from these numbers here, we can see it's headed toward -3. So that's it. We don't have to worry about this side at all because it's coming from the positive side. Answer A. Okay, the function g is defined over the real numbers except at x equals 2. And they want to know the limit as x approaches 2 from the positive side. All right. So we're headed toward x equals 2. This is the x. We're headed toward this. And we're coming from the positive side. So that's this side here. All right. We're headed towards 2. So we look at the g of x values headed in this direction. Okay. Does it matter that the function is undefined at 2? No, that does not matter. We're looking at what it approaches, not what it is at 2. So we're looking at just these values right in here. And as you can see, 7.2, 704, it's getting closer and closer to 7. Okay. So ignore the undefined, ignore this values that are from the negative side. Those are irrelevant. We can see from this right here, it's approaching 7. All right, h is defined over the real numbers. What is a reasonable estimate as x for the limit as x approaches 3 from the negative side? Okay, so let's see. Here is the x values. Here is x equals 3, and we are coming from the negative or less than side. So we're coming from the negative side, and we're going in this direction. All right. So we don't want to try to evaluate the function at 3. We're not even worried about it. We're just looking at this group of numbers right here. And as you can see, the direction it's headed, -105, -1.0005. It's getting closer and closer to -1. Never mind the fact that it's actually -7 at 3. We're not worried about that. We're worried about what it approaches, not what it is. So that's it. And we're only doing the negative side, not the positive side. So that's it. It approaches -1. All right, function f defined over the real numbers. This table is vertical instead of horizontal. Okay, but that doesn't matter. And they want the estimate as the limit of x approaches 8 from the negative side. All right, 8 from the negative side. So we're looking at the x values from the negative side, and we're headed towards 8 right here. All right. So let's look at the values for f of x. And on this side, it's at 99, 425, 750. It looks like it's getting greater and greater. But then at the number 8, it's only 5. Okay? We're not trying to evaluate the function at 8, so really we can ignore that. Positive side at all, we can ignore that. So from this here, I mean, it looks like it may be approaching 1,000 or maybe infinity. Let's take a look at their answers. Okay, perfect. I said infinity and they have unbounded. That's perfect, okay? It looked like maybe 1,000, but there's nothing here that says 1,000. So I would say the best answer is infinity. If this kept going, if you look at the trend of just these three, it looks like it's just getting more and more. Never mind the fact that it's only 5 at x equals 8. We don't worry about that. So I'm going with unbounded.